How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. I'm here with Sean today, and we are going to talk about an interesting topic, Sean.
Let's go.
Chaos in 2024.
Yo, man, I try to be more of a content creator than a content consumer, but I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I do, follow a handful of accounts on Instagram. And then, of course, the algorithms feed me what they think I want to see. And sometimes they throw some shit in there that I may not want to see, but it still catches my attention. And one recurring theme is, maybe this is just a pattern on history going into election cycles or just in general. But, a theme that I've been hearing recently is just 2024 is going to be a year of fucking chaos. And so, let's just start with the higher level shit. Like, what if it is a year of chaos? I don't care if it's just within the United States, if it's within the world, but like, what should people be thinking about, concerned about, if anything, or what should they be doing in a potential year of chaos? Even if it's not chaotic necessarily right now in January, it'll be interesting to play this episode back in a couple months. But where are you at with this?
Oh man,
let's go.
If you follow any of my social media, you know that I like to indulge in some of this stuff for sure. I don't know how you couldn't, though, if you just have even a small sample set of 2016, 2020, and now like if you're a person that looks at patterns and you're willing to be an open-minded thinker, 2016 was pretty crazy to an extent. And then the aftermath of 2016, and then 2020 was bananas worldwide. I think we can all agree on that. And if you don't think that was related to the election, maybe that's okay. But I think that you would be remiss to not think that this year has some definite things coming. And so, like, ultimately, what do you do? Because most people just feel helpless in the situation, right? I think that what I always try to balance this shit by is like, what on one hand, this is access to information that we've just never had, right?
Right.
So where's the balance? Because I'm 44 years old. I grew up before the internet. Like, I didn't have cell phones and shit like that when I was in high school. Thank fucking God. And like cell phones, we just got like when I was getting into college and stuff like that. And so, so how much of this paranoia or how much of this is real or perceived, like just madness, if you will? And then how much of it is related to our access to information, so that real time I can receive like so-and-so is trying to fuck us over. And like, I know 5 minutes after they do it. Whereas before it was curated and controlled through 3 news sources and a couple major publications that were all now you know a little. Now that those were all owned by the same 2 or 3 people forever anyway. And so like, which causes you to go further and further down the rabbit hole. Like, how much do we actually know? And how much have we known for the last 100 years? And so ultimately you could drive yourself crazy, like paying attention to this stuff, right? Like, I used to go down the rabbit hole with like talk radio and stuff like that 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I had to turn it off just because it wasn't good for me. Like, it can work you into an anxious frenzy, if you will. It also isn't good for productivity at all. So like, what can you do in 2024? You can do what we kind of talk about in the Tactical Empire, which is like focus on taking care of your shit, handling your business. Like, you can make sure your family is safe and taken care of. You can create yourself into a fucking formidable human being, man, like be strong, be capable, have skills with regards to all kinds of things. And then you can also set yourself up with money, right?
Mhm.
Like make more money. And for me, the biggest thing I see that I think is inevitable is that like a widening of the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And like I could go down the rabbit hole on all these different conspiracies, but I think that one is one that you can really not argue with. It the cost of goods, I saw a thing this year in 2023, it cost $11,000 more to just live. And so like that $11,000 is significant when you talk about the middle class.
That's real
Like,
money. Oh, that's a ton of money, my man.
right. So like inflation numbers, whatever, like it doesn't matter if it costs like that's hard money. $11,000 to keep your lights on, to feed your family, to gas up your car, to do the normal things, nothing extravagant. If you're making $40,000, that's crippling. If you're making $60,000, that's painful. If you're making $80,000, it still sucks. $100,000, same thing. And so like when you talk about that, what am I telling people to do with regards to that? I don't think that's going to slow down. So the one of the biggest things I've seen recently is that makes a lot of sense to me that I never really thought of is that why are things getting more and more expensive as we get further and further down this technological advancement line, right? Theoretically, like we were at the innovation that's been made over the last 20 or 30 years should have made cost of living go down to next to nothing. Like TVs that used to cost $3,000 now cost $300, and like microchips, things like that. Like efficiencies are at an all-time high, and the cost of goods are at an all-time. It depends on what we're talking about. Some is low, but with technology and the advancements of everything that we have, like theoretically, things should have gotten cheaper over time. And if you look at the graph on things getting more and more expensive, it doesn't make any sense outside of the fact that they're devaluing the dollar and the currency is being eroded, if you will. So where does that stop? It stops with a wealth gap that is going to be an issue that at some point there's not going to be a middle class. I think we had a huge, a lot. The middle class was pretty much gutted in 2020 with all that went on during COVID. I mean, you saw the closures of businesses that had been around forever, 30, 40-year family businesses, just closed up, things like that. So when you think about this and generationally, they may leave with a couple $1 million right now, but that's not going to last very long, right? Whereas if they had that functioning business still, it could go for into eternity as long as someone would run it, right? And manage it well. So you've lost your vehicle and the vehicle got pulled out from under you. So now the heirs of that particular restaurant or whatever we're talking about now have to go out and find jobs, and they're going to go to work for other people. Like, long story short, how do you bridge the gap from the haves to the have-nots, or the opposite direction, have-nots to the haves? Because if we have a destabilization of the dollar and the currency goes a direction of digital currency or something like that, or they do away with the dollar and they come up with this whatever WHO new dollar, the thing that's going to bridge that gap for you, if you're on the tipping point, because I don't think any of us have enough money to really be like, yeah, we got fuck you money and it doesn't matter. Like if you're at 500 million and above, maybe if you're at 50 million and above, and you're a good steward with it, like there's no looking back at this point. You've bridged the gap, right? But for those of us that are on the come up, the most important thing you can do is own as many assets as you possibly can, because the more assets that you have control of, if shit hits the fan or goes to zero and the dollar doesn't exist anymore, right? when the new currency, whatever that is, comes out, the assets are just going to be transferred into that new currency. Then you're going to exchange your assets for whatever the new dollar is. And you're going to come out with a level of wealth that you otherwise wouldn't have had. So if you're sitting on a sack of dollars, when the dollar goes to zero, you're fucked. If you're sitting on a portfolio of 100 homes or a potential $10 million portfolio of real estate, then you've got new money, whatever new money it is, attached to sticks and bricks or an asset, right? This goes for anything that's asset based. If you've got real estate, if you've got businesses, if you've got any sort of assets, gold, silver, I don't know what that's going to be worth. You have to know more about that than I do, admittedly. And then obviously stocks and things like that are going to be valued at whatever. I'm going to speak to what I know, which is real estate, and the rest of it is not my game. But you want to have as many assets as you possibly can and not be as liquid in cash when the so-called crash happens, if it happens. So where I'm at with like 24 being the year of chaos, the best thing you can do is build yourself into a fucking machine personally, love your family well, and then acquire as many assets as you possibly can. Interest rates be damned. Like none of that matters, right? That's why I'm telling you guys in this group all the time that at the end of the day, all that matters is he who holds the most deeds to properties. Like get the thing under contract, make sure it cash flows a little bit, and then get as much of it as you possibly can. That's why assets under management matters right now. Like everybody is like, that's such a vanity score. Now it depends on what assets under management means. Like if you're leveraged and they're yours, that's a different story, in my opinion. If you have $100 million of real estate and it's leveraged, and like that's no problem, it's all yours. Now if you're saying I have $100 million and it's all syndications and you're a fucking general partner on 8% of it, that's not as sexy. But you still own shares of businesses, so like that is still something. It's just not necessarily, it's not nearly as sexy as $100 million that's yours,
right?
And so just understand that. But at the end of the day, you still, so I say that as limited partners are still buying shares of businesses. So you are still invested in an asset. So it's still a good hedge, if you will. But I mean, I don't know. I could go all over the place with this topic. What do you think? You're a guy who doesn't pay much attention to this stuff, usually, historically.
That's why it came up today, because I know you've been more on the forefront of it. And for me, I've always been and so I'm going to cover myself here because I don't want to talk ignorantly about a topic that I haven't researched much of. But, I've always been in the camp of take care of yourself, take care of your micro economy first, take care of your personal finances and your family, and whatever quote they do, it doesn't matter. And after going through, the ringer of what has been the past almost 8 years now, to be honest, to the people listening, like over the past 6 to 12 months, I've started to open my mind to understanding and truly believing that there are forces at play that are really trying to fuck people over. I knew that, certain structures of economies had built in things that, some people are going to do better than others. Sure. Cool. I'm a fan of that. But now the more that I get exposed to it, I think there are forces at play. And so I don't want to fall down that rabbit hole to the point where I'm paranoid or obsessed over it. Cause I think my strategy has done well for me and my family, to be honest with you. Like I'm really happy with where we are in life. And so I don't want to become someone that, stays up at night and worries about this shit, but someone that's in my position. Like, what do I have to understand? What are some things that I can do without maybe crossing over that fence and falling down? That may be a rhetorical question. I don't know. Like, I just want to make sure that I'm watching the right things, listening to the right people, and continuing to do what I've done. Because like I said, I still believe that I'm in control of a lot of things in my own ecosystem. But where to go from here? Where to go from here? Like, you're right. I don't have $50 million, but I'm also not the person that I was 10 years ago on a teacher salary, $35,000 a year before taxes. To go back, I really don't know how people are doing it. If you're making 35 grand, and I was that person. I was that person. I didn't have 2 kids and I wasn't married at the time. I really don't even put myself in that headspace. I do it when I do like gratefulness exercise. Like, I'm grateful for where I was and where I've been, but I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole and be like, what if I was in that position? What would I do? I think it's a waste of time in my mind, because I'm not going back there. So what would you say to someone like me or people listening that are in that position? What do they need to know? What do they need to understand?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it comes back to doing what you can do, because otherwise, like, it is a fruitless exercise to worry about, like, what if I had $100 million? Like, none of that matters. You are where you are right now. So what can you do ultimately to make sure that you are in the best position possible? The number one thing I can tell you is to not sit on your hands. Most people just allow themselves to be overwhelmed by fear, or like the inevitable is coming, or whatever the fuck it is. Like, I don't subscribe to that. I'm going to run as hard as I fucking can. And like, if the world explodes, whatever, like, we're all dead anyway. Who cares?
Yeah.
But if we pop out the other side, and the forces of good prevail, fuck you want to say, like, I want to be miles ahead of everybody else that didn't do anything for the last 2 years. You saw this during COVID.
Yeah.
Anything. They didn't make any progress. They didn't do anything because they were scared shitless. And they were like, whoa, I've never seen anything like this. This is a worldwide shutdown. What's going on? Stop the presses. Dude, I didn't do any of that shit. I pushed on the gas as hard as I could, and I came out 10 times ahead of where I was. And like, I'm going to do that again this time. And it doesn't matter. Like, that's the best thing you can do. And like, people may not receive this well, but like, the same thing I talk about in the group, like, your obligation as a man is to pay attention to this shit for your family. Like, if you're not paying attention to the fact that there's 8 million illegal immigrants coming across the border, and what the fuck that's going to do to our civilization over the next 10 years, you're foolish. I don't give a fuck. Like, you can call me whatever name you want. Like, if you've watched those things happen, and the migrations and the people coming across are 20 to 30-year-old males from all over the world that have no intention of assimilating into the United States, and 8 million of them in 3 years. So where are we going to put all these people? When is that going to have any sort of ramifications within our environment? Like, I'm just I study patterns and things like that. I watch for things. If you look at Europe, they're just ahead of us in this scenario. They've allowed all this immigration to happen 10 years ago. And what has it caused in their communities? It's caused a destabilization of their values, their ethics, and it's caused a huge increase in crime, and it's caused a lot of issues. So for me, I've got 3 daughters. I've got a wife. I'm very, very acutely aware of all of that. And so it has been very important to me to stay on top of my game. So what can I do? I can't protect every single facet of every single thing in life. I can do the best I can, and I can prepare, right? So like, I have an also think that we have gotten completely away from like individual being something that we should do in our families. Like, I was born in 1979. There were still like bomb shelters and stuff like that in the Midwest where I grew up. And they were kind of for tornadoes, but some of them were, right? Like, and so at that time, like, food preparation, canning, shit like that. Like, I mean, I have a bunch of family that grew up as farmers and stuff like that. So being able to can food, things like that we have completely forgotten, and that now you're like on the terrorist watch list if you know how to do this shit for some reason. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So like, do we have food? Do we have rations and preparations and things like that? Yes. like, even if you don't think the world's ending, or you don't think it's going to be civil unrest that's going to cause these issues, you are susceptible to natural disasters all the time. Like, our house was flooded for 3 fucking days. We had 3.5 feet of water in our home, and we lived on the second floor of our house. And so, like, anything can happen. And if you don't take your obligation seriously, I'm in charge of 6 people in my family and a dog, right? In my immediate family. Those are my priorities. And then my in-laws live down the street. And so, like, those 8 people are part of my plan always. And so, like, I feel like I have an obligation to be prepared for them to take care of things. And I think that everyone should take that mindset. And so, like, if you can't take care of your family for 2 weeks with no involvement from electronics or anything else, then, like, you're not a good steward of your family. And there's nothing I can say to the contrary. I don't care what you have to say about me. If you can't provide food and water for everybody that lives under your roof for 2 weeks, then you're not really paying enough attention.
Sure.
Like, you shouldn't get so lazy that you rely on every system and technology that we have available at our fingertips that you can't sustain yourself for any period of time.
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, I've put in some things in place. I think you can fall in a couple different buckets, like the person with the resources, whether that's money or food or guns, and then the people with the skills. And so I kind of, in my mind, I've, 2 kids and a wife. So those are my nuclear plans, and my in-laws live locally. But, I look at my brothers, and they can, and they store food, and they have guns and ammo, and they got skill sets. And then obviously we've been buying property. We moved out of a neighborhood. It wasn't the main reason why, but like, I also was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I want to be out and away from the people. And so we moved outside of town. We own properties, 3 different properties in the mountains that we use for short-term rentals. But I would be remiss to think that I wouldn't be going to one of those, which is farther away from motherfuckers if shit hit the fan. But then like a couple years ago, well, this was during COVID, like on the back end of COVID lockdowns, I fell down the rabbit hole a little bit and was listening to some shit. And I was like, well, I don't want to take the time to buy the food to can it. So I bought, I think it's 6 months worth of, dry freeze food that has a 25-year shelf life. That's the bare minimum. And I had the money to do it. Right. Like, I spent like $1,500 on buying ReadyWise meals off Amazon for, 6, and it's been sitting in my basement ever since, so there's little things that I've been doing, but I think this is really nice. I think a lot of what we said was control the controllable, which is inside of your nuclear family, from a financial perspective, from a skill perspective, from a planning perspective, but also as the man, understand what is going on. And I think this is, maybe playing off of one of our other episodes. I think being in the right mastermind where people actually care about this, and they're not just arguing over the headlines, they're actually productively doing something that's within their control. I think that's important. I think that's what we have. We have a bunch of those guys in the inner circle that, again, I'm not at the forefront of waving this flag, but I've certainly learned a few things. And to be honest, we just started the year with a couple guys fasting, and we talk about the health benefits of fasting, but there's also the financial benefit of fasting. And then I just finished my first 48-hour fast, and I would be an idiot not to tell you that I thought about that in the realm of this question. And it was, if shit hit the fan, I need to take care of myself, but if I can fast for 48 fucking hours and provide food for my kids during that time, like, I think that's an asset. So putting yourself in discomfort now to be able to go through the shit. What if your heater in your house doesn't work? Right. And you live in Virginia, Pennsylvania, or worse, Maine and North Carolina. You got to be able to get wood and start a fucking fire, stay warm. How do you prep your basement to be the place that you're going to live for, a week or 2 at a time? So yeah, anyways, I'm talking from the side of things where I haven't done as much research. So I appreciate your information. I appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to send the people out on?
Well, I mean, those are prime skills that you're talking about. Fire, water. You can go for over 2 weeks without food. Like, human beings can go for over 2 weeks without any food. You can only go 2.5, 3 days without water. So water is a primary need. So, like, you need to understand all those things. And I think that, like, I don't think this is being crazy at all. That's why I enjoy the people in the inner circle, because I'm like, $2,000 on MREs, or like the storage food that you were talking about. Like, it lasts 25 fucking years. So would you not just spend $2,000 on your family and put it in your closet and just have that peace of mind? It's insurance is all it is.
Right.
I mean, we spend a fortune on insurance. Like, why wouldn't you do that? And then I don't know. I think it's just been so the vilification of preparedness at any level is silly. But then when you have a breakdown in the fabric of society, one iota, the people that are prepared, because being a leader, which is who we're speaking to, is you should be prepared. Like, those are the guys that change people's tires. Those are the guys that have tools in their truck. Those are the guys who fucking, when your whole neighborhood is flooded, they go get people out of their houses. Like, that's the people that people look for in the times of strife. And you should aspire to be one of those people. I don't give a fuck what society tells you. Like, because that is a good place to be. I will never be sad that I was prepared in any moment.
Right.
Like, it doesn't feel like a waste of time at all. Like, most of us just consider our fitness like our level of preparedness, if you will. But if you can't start a fire with no tools, if you can't, like, there's just stand, and that we need to be building upon on a regular basis. And those skills are something no one can take from you ever. So I talk all the time about business and making money and building your skill set, because, like, those are things that people can't take from you either, right? So that's why if I say, if you have a 20 first rental property, you should buy a course or a coach that can teach you a skill set to turn that 50 grand into 500 grand, to where you can pour gasoline on your investments. It's the same type of thing. Like, if you're going to go spend $2,500 on a preparedness or a wilderness training course, like, no one's ever going to be able to take that from you.
Yeah.
And so, like, and those are skills that they're perishable to an extent, but, like, done them, don't know where to start either. So, like, shooting a handgun is a perishable skill, right? So you should train frequently with it, but it's not as perishable as somebody who has never shot a gun. So, like, you're still in a better position then, and you can gain it back. So the same thing with starting fire, sourcing food, skinning animals, like things like that. I mean, I feel like I might have taken this totally off topic. I don't know, but
I didn't know where it was going to go, but I'm enjoying it. We started high level. We started macro, but we brought it down to micro. And I think some of the people listening to this, podcast are bringing a new goal to the forefront of their 2024, which may be to be a strong, healthy, skillful, prepared, yet dangerous and in control of yourself type of individual moving forward in the new year. Like you said, this country was built on the backs of strong fucking men that were dangerous. And the ones that have controlled it and been quiet, those are the ones that are going to fucking come out of their houses when shit hits the fan this year. And they're the ones that we're going to be looking for. And I did see something the other day. I won't steal this as my own, but it's like, there are going to be some new fucking leaders created in the year of 2024. And I highly believe that. I may not be one that's leading the flag in front of the whole country, but I think we are doing that on the level in which we can control here with the inner circle. We are creating a group of men to be leaders in their own homes and their own communities. And what is our country built on? Our country is built on fucking communities. You break it down. And, I'm grateful for the Marine that lives behind me, because I know he's got skills that I don't fucking have. And I'll be knocking on his door, asking for help and making a trade-off if it comes to it. And I'm friendly with him. And I appreciate the work that he's put into being a skillful, healthy, elderly man. And I'm sure there's some things that I will learn from him. So be it, if I need it in the year 2024. So Jeff, I appreciate your breadth of knowledge and the depth in which you can go down on some of these topics, but I really appreciate that we took the time to take a stab at this one today.
Yeah. Ultimately, the guys just keep on moving forward. As personal excellence is the ultimate responsibility. And like that is true. And what that means is, like, owning your responsibility for being a citizen of this country. in the, what's been lost over the last 50 years within this country is that like being a citizen is not, while it is a right, there is an obligation that comes with it, and you must serve your community. And serving means not a fucking fat, disgusting taker of a human being. And it means providing and being a good neighbor to the people around you, and being prepared so that you can help the people around you as well. And so we've got to the point where everybody's a taker and no one is a provider, and you should be a provider.
Boom. I'm going to send that last line to the person that's in my Instagram DMs right now calling me an asshole because I posted a video about someone saying that people shouldn't be fat and they should take care of their own health. So I'm going to clip that last part and send that back to him.
There you go. There you go.
Jeff, I appreciate you, my man.
Absolutely. Talk to you guys next week.
Yeah.